So welcome everyone. Glad to see this good turnout to this International Career Pathways event on funding for internships and research abroad. If you look at funding, say, for study abroad, that's typically linked to academic credit, and it's often tied in with financial aid. And most funding for study abroad requires that you be receiving credit. However, for internships and research, typically those things are done on a co-curricular or not-for-credit basis, and the kinds of funding available for study abroad would not typically be available for internships or research. The good news is that University of Michigan gives a great deal of funding for exactly those activities, and they're not required to have credit in order to be eligible for the funding. In fact, as much as we can track it, we know that at least $1 million of funding goes each year to students to do internships and research abroad on a co-curricular basis. And that's only the units that actually report their funding amounts. The amount could be twice as high as that. So what we want to do with today's program is to introduce you to some of the major offices on this campus that offer funding for internships and research abroad. And you have the program, I hope, of the speakers. We'll start with funding for undergraduates only, and then we'll move to most of the offices present here, which give funding to both undergraduates and graduate students. So if you're one or the other, please bear with us until we get to your category. And then we'll finish up with the Rackham Fellowships Office, which will speak about funding for graduate students only. Each speaker will present fairly briefly, maybe 5 minutes. We'll probably hold most questions until the end, and then at the end you should have plenty of time left to come and meet with people individually with whom you have the most interest. There's a funding for internships and research abroad handout, so please pick that up. This gives some of the major sources of funding on campus, and it also gives tips for finding an internship. Basically, to be competitive for these grants, you will need to have something arranged first, either an internship or a research opportunity. So that's that should be your first order of priorities. And then secondly, look for funding. But do be mindful of the deadlines. Deadlines start as early as November 19th, as you can see. And we'll hear from the two programs today on the panel, which have that early deadline. On page 4 of this handout for funding, there are 5 tips by a graduate student who was our peer advisor, who was very successful at finding grants. And she says, get organized, start early, be creative, follow instructions, keep copies. So that's a good set of tips, and I think you'll find much else in this handout. So we can launch right into our program. First, we'll hear from Doug Fletcher, and he'll speak about scholarships for LS&A undergraduates. This is the only program we have that's specific to one school or college, but for good reason, I think. There are plenty of LS&A undergraduates and graduate students.
Hi, I'm Doug Fletcher. I work in the Dean's office in the LS&A building, second floor, and I manage the scholarship program for the college. So what I'd like to talk to you about are our LS&A internship scholarships. Now, these are for any internships, but can also be used for international internships. So briefly, the deadline's coming up March 11th. These scholarships are only for students who are or have received financial aid. So these are primarily need-based and for students who have received financial aid in the past. You don't need to receive financial aid for the term of the internship. That's not required, but demonstrating need in prior terms is necessary. The scholarships are only for spring-summer internships. The awards can range up to $5,000 for the term of the internship. Students have to have completed at least one academic year, so these are for students ending their freshman, sophomore, junior years, going into the summer terms of their internship. The duration of the internship has to be at least 6 weeks, and it should be at least a 40-hour a week internship, full-time equivalent. So there's an application online. I have brochures that I can have available after everyone is finished and after questions are done for those who are interested, and I have my card. Everything is on our website. I didn't bring a handout. I have as I said, I have the brochure that'll list the URL for the website. Everything's there, including the application. And the really that's the gist of it. The amount of funding, who's eligible, the application deadline, I'll repeat, it's coming up March 11th of next year. And if you have any questions, I'll stay behind and you can and take those. Right now, I'd like to introduce Rachael Criso, and she's going to give you some information about undergrad international internships.
Thanks, Doug. I'm kind of piggybacking off Doug. Doug and I work in the same office over in LS&A, and I run an internship program, so I figured perhaps I'd have a little bit of an audience of people who might be still looking for their internship for next summer. It is just for undergraduates. It's for returning undergraduates, and I run international internships in France and French-speaking countries, including North Africa. We're affiliated with a group that places students in German internships. We're doing Spanish internships, hopefully for the first time this summer. And also, we're also looking into doing internships in London and a few other countries. We have a big information session on Thursday this week over in North Quad, in the space there, 2435. Beginning at 6:30, going till 8. It's very informal. If any of you are interested, you could stop by. It's going to be kind of a poster session where our students who interned last summer will be presenting their work and be available to chat in a very informal way with students that are interested in doing perhaps a similar thing next summer. Our deadline is December 1st this year for applying to the program, if you're interested. And I'll also stay behind if you have any questions for me at the end of the panel today. Thank you.
And next, Zilka Joseph will speak about a funding opportunity in India for undergraduates in all schools and colleges.
Thanks, Bill. Hi, everyone. I'm the program manager at the Center for South Asian Studies, and we have a very unique opportunity for students, for undergraduate students. Every summer, we pick 6 to 8 students every year to go specifically to India to work with NGOs. So this is a little different than some of the other programs, which are specifically internships. Even though unofficially we say the word internship, what we are really looking for is for you to link up with an NGO, with a nonprofit organization in India doing some kind of social work and getting involved with them, but creating your own independent project. And that's what you sort of talk to them about and then put your proposal forward. So since it looks like our program has a deadline that's very close, it's November the 19th. We do have another information session November the 5th, right here in this room at 10 a.m. So if any of you want more specific details or want to come and talk to me for a longer time, you're welcome. Okay, this particular fellowship allows you $3,000. So you basically give us your proposal, talk about why you want to go to India, why specifically to India, in what way are you invested in creating this program, and we look for the most creative and most specific proposals. This year we've also added that you let us know that you are in touch with NGOs in India. Sometimes what happens is we get a proposal and then by the time we get to meet you, or maybe we pick you for the second level, but you haven't really done your research with NGOs, and then it becomes a huge scramble. So we are starting a little earlier this year so that we give you enough time to look for NGOs, and at the same time we know you're really serious about doing your research and homework. So basically, this program really depends on how much you want to do and what you want to make of it. So we basically guide you along, but you do a lot of the legwork, including buying your tickets, doing your visas, and basically looking for the NGOs as well. We do help you along here and there. We give you contacts. We ask you to contact even our previous fellows. They're all available. The video clips are available on the website if you take a look. I have brochures outside. My card is there as well. So click on Summer in South Asia when you get to our website. It lists almost everything. Right now, we just have a sample application up because we're planning to make it an online application this year, but you'll get to see what will be on the application form. So what did I miss? November 5th, one info session. November 19th is your deadline. I also have a list of important dates so that you get a sense of the timeline. And I just wanted to reiterate that this should not be combined with an official internship. This has to be an independent project. All right? Thanks so much. And I'll be here afterwards to talk with if you like. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me mention one other program. That's how many of you are undergraduates here? And this is a program through the Center for Global and Intercultural Studies, and they offer a program called GIEU, the Global Intercultural Experience for Undergraduates program, and that deadline is November 5th. So that's the earliest deadline. And I mention that because Doug Fletcher's office works closely with CGIS to provide funding for students participating in those programs. But next we'll turn to a program which is available to undergraduate and graduate students. This is the Minority Health and Health Disparities program, which provides full funding for research.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Temuulen Johnson, and I'm a manager for the MHIRT program. And some students call it MHIRT, MHIRT, so it's known by different names. It's a very long name. It's a Minority Health and Health Disparities International Training Research Program. All our research is involved related with health. If you're interested in maternal mortality, infant, or environmental health, we have sickle cell disease research, anything that hands-on research, we have it. So we are looking for undergrad students, specifically sophomores and juniors, also grad students and medical students also. Okay, very important deadline is November 19th. It's coming up really soon, so be prepared. And if you really want to apply for this program, you really need to start preparing your applications. Another thing I would like to mention is our students will be showcasing their posters on a Student Global Health Day. So please come, and I have some flyers for you to take a look. This is a 3-month summer program. It perfectly fits to your academic schedule. It starts in mid-May, June, July, and you'll be back before your school starts. And again, one of the most exciting and unique about this program is one of the very few on campus. It's a 100% fully funded program, which means we will pay for your airfare, for your accommodations, and we also provide a stipend for you for that 3 months program. So again, I have more information if you'd like to speak with me later. Another thing I would like to mention about the application. Application has questions. Just make it a small paragraph for your answer. Don't make it really a long essay. And what we're really looking for the answers is if we want to see if you have a real commitment to eliminating health disparities in the developing countries. And the countries for the summer 2013, we have on the list it says Uganda. We don't have Uganda, but we added Kenya, Mongolia, Jamaica, Ghana, Chile, and China. These are the countries we will send our students. Yeah. Yeah, it's only offered to U.S. citizens and green card holders. Yeah. And if you have more questions, I'll be happy to talk to you later, okay? Thank you.
Yes, I believe the MHIRT is the only program featured here that has a citizenship restriction. All the rest do not have that, as far as I'm aware. Oh, you do?
Yes.
Oh, the LSNA apparently has that restriction as well. And I wanted to mention another fellowship that my office helps administer. It's the Wallenberg Fellowship. This is a fellowship that focuses on community service or civic participation anywhere in the world, and it will support volunteer work with a humanitarian organization such as a school, clinic, or aid program, or the exploration of humanitarian issues. These grants are up to $5,000. The deadline will be mid to late February. It's not formally announced yet. And I would recommend looking up Wallenberg on the University of Michigan website, and you can see what past recipients of the award have done to give you a sense of what that's about. I know that members of the committee tend to favor students who have found individually developed projects rather than going on organized programs. All right, so now we can turn to the International Institute. You're sitting here in the International Institute and the area studies centers, which are housed in this building. And the International Institute is a terrific source of knowledge as well as funding. And I think we can start with Kelly Peckens, who represents the central office of the International Institute.
Thanks, Bill. I'm Kelly Peckens. I work in fellowships and grants here at the II, as Bill said, and we administer a variety of fellowships and grants, both prestigious national fellowships, and also we have some of our own in-house International Institute fellowships and grants. We have a handout that was out there, hopefully you picked up. If you take a look, ours is the one with the photos across the top. On one side it has undergraduate fellowships and grants, and on the other side is graduate fellowships and grants. The handout just offers a little blurb about each one along with an approximate deadline, and the complete information is on our website. So actually what you're looking at up here is the II website, and if you take a look across the top banner you'll see fellowships and grants, and then you can select appropriately if you're an undergraduate student or if you're a graduate and professional school student. So I'm just going to turn to the undergraduate portion, and you'll see our opportunities here. So we administer the Fulbright program for U.S. students, and the Luce Scholars Program. Both of these have fall deadlines, so they've just passed for this year. I definitely recommend that you look into these for next fall. The complete information is here. But what I want to talk about now is the International Institute Individual Fellowship, and this is actually available both for undergraduate students and graduate students. So you'll find it in our graduate section as well. And there we go. So the individual fellowship is funding available for students who are conducting research projects abroad or participating in international internships. The funding is up to $5,000, and the deadline this year is February 15th. It's a completely online application process. If you take a look here, you'll find the full information, the project categories, eligibility, ineligibility, and the components of the application. So I'll let you take a look. What it's not available for is traditional study abroad or language study. Again, it's only for research projects on an individual basis and international internships. And again, you can read the full eligibility, ineligibility there. Also, while we're on the graduate page, again, the Fulbright program is available to graduate students. We also have information about the Fulbright Hays, which is for dissertation research abroad. The Rackham International Research Award is also for dissertation research abroad for graduate students, and it's also available now for thesis research for Rackham master's students. And then, of course, the Bourne Fellowships for International Study. These fellowships are available for enrolled graduate students who want to do study of a language deemed critical by the U.S. State Department, or for internships abroad or a research project. So Bourne's actually got a lot of flexibility. Again, the deadline's coming up January 31st for those. So if you're interested in studying a language or conducting research abroad, take a look at Bourne as well. And then FLAS, the Foreign Language and Area Studies Fellowship, is another offering that we have that one of my colleagues is going to talk more about. I'll just take it back to the...
And next we have Julie Claus, I believe, who will speak about the area studies centers, which are part of the International Institute, but have their own sources of funding and their own faculty associates and everything else.
Sure. I'm also going to speak about FLAS real quick. So the FLAS fellowship that Kelly mentioned is the one that is under the heading of the International Institute, but is actually run through the centers. So that's the Foreign Language and Area Studies Fellowship. It's not specifically for research and internship. It's not geared for research and internship. It is geared towards intensive language study, especially for summer. On rare instances, it is paired up with internships where a student will do an internship and then an intensive language study, or vice versa. So if that's something you're interested in, you can talk about or talk to the center coordinator with the person you're interested in. Again, you can get to that through the FLAS links are through the II website. I'll also be at this table out here, the International Institute table, now and then back before the Statement of Purpose workshop this afternoon, and have tons of information out there. And then just a specific word, as Bill mentioned, we have different centers. We actually have 17 different centers here at the II that are kind of sub-centers of the International Institute, serves as our umbrella. So once you know what region you're going to, I know a lot of the people that I spoke to weren't sure yet where they're going. Once you find out, it does help to come here and check out the center to see if the center has specific offerings. A lot of us today are going to talk about our specific offerings, but if you don't know yet, you might not remember, or things change. The other thing that we have all year are these programs and lectures and talks and films and just education on the region. So if you decide you're going somewhere and want to learn more about it, that's a great opportunity to learn more about the region. We also have the opportunity for just, we call it consultation on the region. So if you decide you're going to a place that you've never been before and want to see if we have any connections there, or just want to know more about the region, come see us, come talk to us. That's why we're here. So that's just a quick word about the centers. Now on to kind of my center. I work for the Weiser Center for Europe and Eurasia, which has the Center for Russian, East European, and Eurasian Studies, and the Center for European Studies in it, and also the Center for Emerging Democracies. A few general guidelines about our funding. Graduating students are not eligible to apply for our funding. The number of awards that we offer varies every year, just depending on the amount of funding we have. It's usually about 12 for each of our individual centers each year, but again, it just depends on how much the individual students' projects are costing. So we don't give a specific number of awards up front that we're going to offer. If you're looking for specific research or internship opportunities, those we don't offer to students, but what we do is we get those emails in from different places that want us to advertise, is that we keep blogs on both the Russian, East European, and Eurasian Studies and European Studies websites. And we keep blogs where we put up all of those opportunities that we get. And those blogs are open to the public, so you're always free to go search the blogs. We put up any kind of external funding, external internship opportunities. Any of that stuff is always available on our blogs. So feel free to go check that out. And the other note is that activities of research or internship, if you're applying in our region for funding, should be related to the region too, and not just that you're going to the region. So what you're doing should be regionally related, not just because it's in France per se, but also have something to do with the region. To go back and talk about FLAS real quick, one more second. The FLAS fellowship during the academic year covers, for graduate students, would cover tuition and a $15,000 stipend. For undergraduate students, it's currently giving up to $10,000 for tuition and a $5,000 stipend. So like we said, those aren't typically for research or internships, but if that's something you're interested in doing, you should talk to us. For summer, it would cover tuition for your language program and then a $2,500 stipend. So that's something, if you're interested in, come talk to us. Several of the centers have that, and we have more information out here. Specific to the Center for Russian, East European, and Eurasian Centers, studies, we have the CRIS Research Internship and Fellowship Grant. That one, the deadline to apply for is March 15th. These are for students who are focused in our programs. You don't have to be one of our students, but just focusing on our region or doing something in the region. The grants range from $500 to $1,500 towards work for summer or semester-long research projects in Eastern Europe or the former Soviet Union. You do need to identify your venue of internship at the time of application if you're doing an internship. We do also do rolling applications for CRIS travel grants if you're going to a REIS-focused conference where you'll be presenting a REIS-focused paper or serving as a chair or discussant on a REIS-focused session. And then for European studies for graduate students, we have the Jean Monnet Graduate Fellowship. That one has a December 3rd deadline. Those are summer grants of up to $5,000 for work on issues of European integration. You do need to participate you do need to do at least 12 weeks worth of full-time work on your project and participate in a workshop before. And then the other one that we have is the CES Summer Research. So similar to CRIF, the CRIS one, it's for grad and undergrad students who are going to do research in Europe, somewhere between $500 and $1,500 depending on your project. And again, you need to identify where your internship would be. And I'll be out at the table, and then I'll be back at 3:30 for that Statement of Purpose workshop. So if you miss us this morning, the Institute will be back this afternoon, too, for more questions.
All right, and on the back of your program, there's information on the Statement of Purpose workshop, which is this afternoon at 4 in this same room. And that's very important because probably the most important thing about any grant application is the Statement of Purpose. And to have one that's well written and that says a lot about you as well as your project is really a learned skill. I think it's not a type of writing that most people are good at from the beginning, even if they're excellent writers. That's what we found working with our internship students. And next we have, for anyone interested in Africa, Devon Keane will speak about the African Studies Center.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Devon Keane. I'm with the African Studies Center. I'm assistant director there. And we do offer funding for both undergraduate and graduate students. In the past, we've gotten applications from undergrad students who are going on GIEU trips that Bill mentioned. We're still deciding how we want to handle those requests. So if you're among them, if you know that you're going to be applying for a GIU grant, then just contact me. I have my cards up, and we'll decide in the next few weeks how we want to handle those requests. We also have a rolling deadline for those who are looking for conference travel grants, and that would be if you are presenting or chairing a panel, and a rolling deadline for any events if you're doing an event on campus that's related to African studies. Our deadline for research and internship funding is in February. I would just say please read the application carefully. It is an online application, same as the International Institute funding. We want all the documents uploaded as a single file so we can put them on C-Tools for our committee to review. And we get so many applications that I can't really be combining the various parts of the application, so we ask for you to do that. I know people have had problems with transcripts. You can always, if you get them electronically, you can print them off and scan them all as one document. I got quite a few questions about that last year, so just want to put that up on the front end to save both of us some emails down the line. Same as what Julie mentioned, we don't offer any specific number. We accept applications from across campus, from the STEM fields, science fields, also from the professional schools and from LS&A. So keep that in mind. I think there's anything else. We also have a blog on our website that talks about other external opportunities. And I think that's about it. We offer funding for all of Africa. So that includes North Africa, because it is Africa still. So I do get that question as well. And I used to work at the Department for Afro-American and African Studies, and because no one from that department is able to be here today, I will let you know that they do offer funding for graduate students. As far as I know, I don't know, there may be other opportunities for undergrads, but you should contact that department directly. You should ask, I believe, Robin Grice, and her email is gricer, Gricer. But for sure, they have something called African Initiative grants for research, and that deadline usually is also in February. So if there are any questions, I will be here afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks, Devon. Now that we've covered 2 giant continents, we'll go to a third, at least some parts of Asia, and Takata will speak about the Japan Center and some of the other Asian area centers.
Hello, my name is Takata. I'm the Academic Services Coordinator at the Center for Japanese Studies. I also manage the Foreign Language and Area Studies fellowships for the East Asia centers. And so I'm going to talk primarily about my own center, Japanese Studies, but I'm also going to talk about my counterpart centers in Chinese Studies and Korean Studies. All 3 of these centers have funding for students, primarily for graduate students, but also for undergraduates. We all have a summer fellowship program that funds primarily, I believe, primarily graduate students for a variety of things that you can do during the summer, including individual research, internships, language study, and so on and so forth. At my center, it's capped at typically $5,000, which unfortunately is not a heck of a lot of money if you're thinking about going to Japan for the summer, given the exchange rate these days. And one of the things that we do is to encourage you to apply to multiple sources and try to mesh together funding from a number of different sources. And historically, we've had students who've gotten funding from us, from the International Institute Individual Fellowships. We'll combine that with the Rackham funding and so on and so forth. And by combining several sources of funding together, you're able to do something that you can't do with just one source of funding. Both Japanese Studies and Chinese Studies, we now have a program to fund undergraduate students, primarily for study abroad programs for academic credit, but we're also taking applications from students who participate in GIEU for those programs. So those are also available. We also have at Japanese Studies, Chinese Studies, and Korean Studies conference travel grant, again, primarily for graduate students, for students who are participating in academic conferences to present about something, one aspect or another of of the region and the countries that are located in the region. I guess I should mention that what we're all of us in the East Asia centers, what we're looking for are projects and proposals that substantively engage the countries in question. In other words, we'll look at proposals, and we occasionally get these kinds of proposals, especially from the science and engineering students that say, I'm going to a conference in Japan, and it has to do with polymer chemistry. Well, we'll entertain those proposals, but we're much more interested in funding projects that substantively engage an aspect of the countries that are in question. So we're much more interested if you said you wanted to study polymer chemistry, but how, chemists in particular work with each other in Japan. In other words, to really engage an aspect of the society or the culture or the institutional system that's present in those countries. So.
Thank you, Anne. And looked like there was a good representation of graduate students in the audience. And of course, most of these grants you've been hearing about are for graduate students as well as undergraduates. But last we have Doug Keasal from the Rackham Fellowships Office, who will speak about grants for Rackham graduate students.
Thank you, Bill. There are 2 fellowships that are handled through the Rackham Fellowships Office that the deadline is passed, but as some have mentioned, next year there's another cycle, and that is the DAAD, going to Germany to work with a German institution. And I think there's also an undergrad component to the DAAD. So just be aware of that. Also the LURSI for graduate students going to France, usually for an entire year or most of a year. So those two deadlines are passed, but think of those for next year as well. The main source of funding for graduate students doing research are the Rackham Graduate Student Research Grants. As a master's student in a Rackham program, you qualify one time up to $1,500. Again, it's research related to the completion of your degree. The Rackham website has a number of what is eligible, what is not eligible as far as research expenses. If you're in a PhD program, you qualify for one time as a pre-candidate up to $1,500. And if you're a candidate, you qualify one time up to $3,000. And so if you're a graduate student, you can get it twice. If you miss the pre-candidate portion, you lose it. So if you're in a PhD program, let me encourage you, if you're in a research-related field, to apply for your pre-candidacy portion and then for your candidacy portion as well. It's an ongoing deadline. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks for our reviewers to look at them, to review them, to decide if they're going to fund them. The money is then transferred over to your program, and then your program in turn releases it to you based on their policy. Some have a reimbursement policy. You submit receipts, they give you the money. Some of programs, if we give the program $1,500, they in turn release the whole $1,500 to you. So again, the Rackham website is a great source to discover what Rackham covers as far as funding and fellowships, not just for research, but for a lot of other travel grants, presenting papers and posters, and so on. Let me mention a couple other sources of funding. Last year, really right now, we are celebrating the 100th anniversary of graduate education at the university. And so last year, the Rackham Graduate School gave out $106,000 awards to both master's and PhD students to do research, to do your own research. We are going to continue that, but we're not sure yet what it's going to be named. We're not sure yet deadlines, but check the Rackham website. We will notify programs. Your graduate coordinators will find out the deadlines and what is entailed. But there'll be a similar type of funding competition, as it were, for this coming summer. Again, for summer research. Again, I think the awards are going to be $6,000. I don't know how many awards we're going to give. Will it be 100 again? I don't know. We don't even know what it's going to be named yet. I mean, I don't know what it's going to be named. But just be aware of that. Another smaller source with a January 31st deadline is the Lipschutz Host Heirs Award. And it's a pot of money that was given to the university many, many years ago, and we're living off the interest on that now so many years later. It is for women only. It is for those who have reached candidacy, and it is for living expenses and or research for summer. It's $5,000. And so, again, the information, the eligibility, what is not eligible, criteria is on the Rackham website. And almost all of the applications are online, as most of the colleagues have mentioned. And the same thing is true with the Rackham monies for research. Our process is almost entirely online applications. Thank you.
All right. Well, I did want to add just a few last remarks before we open it up for questions, and that you can come and meet with the panelists directly. That is, if we were to represent every unit at this university that offers funding, the entire room would be filled up with presenters. So this is just a representative sample. But you can always check with your major department, or if you're in a master's degree program, that degree program, every school and college we're aware of gives grants, or even within some schools, such as the School of Public Health, every degree program within that school has its own grants for its own students in that track. So you always want to check closest to where your home base is at the university, because it's likely that they will have funding. And many departments don't announce funding, and they don't have a formal process. So you still can ask if they would consider a funding request.